What's going on, guys? Welcome to the circus, and today's dig, we're going to get into this thing. The first time I heard that commercial, I think I was not in the position to be able to see it. But I remember as soon as I could hear it, thinking to myself, what is with that commercial? What's with that sound? And I felt like it was affecting me different than your typical commercial. And let's all, put aside the fact that we understand that all these different brands are doing the same base commercial setup, and a lot of it involves the piano and such. It's different than that. There's a Vox article that does a really funny rendition about all the videos put together. Of course, when I started looking for what the source of my intrigue was around this commercial, it's not going to be Vox that I'm going to find my truth at. However, which is kind of crazy, I did find an old New York Times article. It's a New York Times article from November 13th, 2010. All right. What happens in our brains when we watch a compelling TV commercial? For one thing, certain brain waves that correlate with heightened attention become more active, according to researchers who have used EEGs or electroencephalographs to study the brain's electrical frequencies. Brain waves that signal less focused attention, meanwhile, tend to subside. In other words, this is your brain on ads. Or so say neuromarketers, a nascent group of researchers who use techniques from neuroscience to analyze people's responses to products and promotions. Neuromarketing's raison d'etre, I think, maybe, derives from the fact that the brain expends only 2% of its energy on conscious activity, with the rest devoted largely to unconscious processing. Thus, neuromarketers believe traditional market research methods like consumer surveys and focus groups are inherently inaccurate because the participants can never articulate the unconscious impressions that whet their appetites for certain products. If pitches are to succeed, they need to reach the subconscious level of the brain, the place where consumers develop initial interests in products, inclinations to buy them, and brand loyalty, says A.K. Pardreep, the founder and chief executive of NeuroFocus, a neuromarketing firm based in Berkeley, California. We're going to go look at NeuroFocus a little bit later. Volunteers in NeuroFocus marketing tests wear a fabric cap that houses EEG sensors and an eye tracking device while they look at a commercial, use a website, or view a movie trailer. The dual devices enable researchers to connect the volunteers' brain patterns with the exact video images or banner ads or logos they're viewing. By measuring brain waves, we are able to measure attention, emotion, and memory, says Pardreep, who holds a PhD in engineering. We basically compute the deep subconscious response to stimuli. Add all those electrical patterns together, he says, and you find it represents the whispers of the brain. And the brain whispering business seems to be booming. A handful of neuromarketing firms like MSense, Sands Research, MindLab International, and Neuroscience now specialize in the latest mind mining techniques. EEGs, MRIs, eye tracking, or in older biometric methods that track skin, muscle, or facial responses to products or ads. Companies like Google, CBS, Disney, Frito-Lay, and A&E Television, as well as some political campaigns, have used neuromarketing to test consumer impressions. And in 2008, Nielsen invested in NeuroFocus. Okay, so the company that is ran by the Dr. Pardreep or whatever, NeuroFocus, was bought out by Nielsen. Now, notice in the article here it says that it was Nielsen just invested in NeuroFocus in 2008. So it just invested in NeuroFocus in 2008. Remember that. The largest of these firms adding credibility to the field. Trying to tap into the consumer subconscious in the hope of moving more merch isn't new. More than 50 years ago, Vance Packard, a journalist and social critic, wrote a seminal book called The Hidden Persuaders, which described how advertisers played on people's unconscious desires in trying to influence. Neuromarketing is simply the latest incarnation, says Joseph Turow, a professor of communication at Annenberg School of Communication at University of Pennsylvania. There has always been the holy grail in advertising to try and reach people in the hypodermic way, he says. Major corporations and research firms, he says, are jumping on the neuromarketing bandwagon because they are desperate for any novel technique to help them break through all marketing clutter. It's as much about the nature of the industry and the anxiety roiling through the system as it is about anything else, he says. But should we worry that a technique that probes subconscious brain patterns might be used to unduly influence consumers, turning them into shopping robots without their knowledge and consent? Indeed, neuromarketing is setting off alarm bells among some consumer advocates who call it brand washing, an amalgam of branding and brainwashing. It's having an effect on individuals that individuals are not informed about and should be regulated, says Jeff Kester, executive director for the Center for Digital Democracy, which works to safeguard digital privacy. Mr. Chester says the government traditionally hasn't restricted advertising for adults because adults have defense mechanisms that can distinguish between truth and untruth. But if the advertising is now purposefully designed to bypass those rational defenses, then the traditional legal defenses protecting advertising speech in the marketplace have to be questioned. Proponents of the technique, however, say neuromarketing is simply a more accurate barometer of consumer response than traditional focus groups. Dr. Pardreep of NeuroFocus, for one, says his company will never use subliminal techniques like embedding stimuli that last 30 milliseconds or less that people can't consciously register. Like, why is that so specifically in there like that? Like who stands up and says, I, for one, know that my company will never use subliminal techniques like embedding stimuli that last 30 milliseconds or less that people can't consciously register. This is crazy. And while other neuromarketing firms have been involved in political campaigns, testing candidate speeches and ad scripts, NeuroFocus has not. If I persuaded you to choose toothpaste A or toothpaste B, you haven't really lost much. But if I persuaded you to choose President A or President B, the consequences could be much more profound. Dr. Pardreep says, the fact that we can use this technology to do this doesn't mean that we should. It is a circus, man. Okay. Moreover, at this point, neuromarketing probably isn't sophisticated enough to realize some of its critics' worst fears. This article, though, remember, it was written in 2010, so we've got 10 years of technology on top of this. EEGs, for example, can be used to determine whether a person is engaged, but not to decipher the nuances of that engagement, says Dr. Robert T. Knight, a professor in neuroscience and psychology at Berkeley, as well as the chief science advisor at NeuroFocus. That means, he says, that neuromarketing may distinguish whether a person's emotional response is positive or negative, but not whether the positive response is awe or amusement. So they were able to do everything except for to tell the difference between awe or amusement in 2010. This is not a mind reader, Dr. Knight says. We can only measure whether you are paying attention. Skeptics also note that the technique has yet to prove that brain pattern responses to marketing correlate with purchasing behavior. The enthusiasm for neuromarketing is based on a mistaken belief that triggering certain brain activity can be a more real and powerful influence than people's behavioral responses, says Paul Root-Wolpe, a bioethicist who is director of Emory Center of Ethics. He calls neuromarketing an iffy technology, a kind of pop neurology that at best may provide cues and clues on how companies can better position products. The idea is that somehow neuromarketing is going to be much more powerful, that like zombies we are all going to go out and buy soap, Professor Wolpe says, but that is just not realistic in terms of the way the brain works. However, if you wanted everybody to just shut up and stay inside their house for a little while, efforts are now underway to try to validate these techniques. In September, the Advertising Research Foundation and Industry Group announced a Neurostandards Initiative project. It is to review research from participating firms and to establish some industry-wide standards for neuromarketing. They think they might need to police themselves. NeuroFocus isn't participating because it already has its own standards, Dr. Pardreep says, but the Neuro Standards project has still attracted some serious interest. Sponsors include General Motors, Clorox, American Express, Campbell Soup, and MTV Networks. Okay, so this Dr. Pardreep guy sounds like my kind of dude. Daily Research News Online, we find out about this, a little bit more about Dr. Pardreep. Neuroscience launches for Pardreep's Machine Vantage. Machine Vantage, the company launched in 2016 by NeuroFocus founder A.K. Pardreep, who we were listening to in the earlier New York Times article that was from 2010, to develop AI and machine learning-based solutions across business operations, has announced 10 new products focused on innovation in marketing and new product development. The Berkeley, California-based firm received backing in 2017 from Unilever Ventures, a retail giant IRI. Dr. Pardreep pictured, who sold NeuroFocus to Nielsen in 2011. Okay, so we read that Nielsen bought into his company in 2008, and then he sold the entire company to Nielsen in 2011. Okay, so we're tracking. And another company, Science, I don't know what that is, firm Board Vantage to NASDAQ in 2016 says machine learning combines deep understanding of the foundational principles driving consumer purchase behavior with unique algorithms that process information consumers imbibe under the threshold of conscious consumption. I'll link all this up, but mainly here, Pardreep says the new solutions are blending core learnings and best practices from consumer neuroscience with AI and ML systems, enables the successful execution of algorithmically unearthed concepts. Knowing that 95% of the consumer's daily decisions are made in the non-conscious mind underscores the scientific validity and the commercial importance of this approach. This guy is like the Bill Gates of brainwashing. All right, so Nielsen is the company that bought out his firm. Now, Nielsen, it turns out, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, I'm probably not, but Nielsen, it turns out, they're directly connected to the ad council who's putting out this crazy commercial I hate. And I'll show you the video. Watch this.
The Ad Council is the nation's largest producer of public service advertising. We take on social issues and try to make a measurable difference in those issues for the American public. Nielsen has been a fantastic partner. We've been working together since about 2013 on a wide range of consumer neuroscience studies. Media fragmentation is a big challenge for us. We are competing for very limited attention on the part of consumers. Often we are presenting messages to people that are not necessarily things they want to hear or things they're interested in doing.
Often we are presenting messages to people that are not necessarily things they want to hear or things they're interested in doing.
So we have to be extremely compelling, we have to be truly breakthrough. Each study we've done with Nielsen has had very clear implications coming out of the research for the campaigns. Basically, you have findings that you can take to the edit studio and you immediately see the difference and the improvement in your creative once you've utilized the implications. A big point of difference of neurological research for us is that it's so objective and you're really avoiding pro-social bias. Sometimes people aren't able to tell you their real reaction, sometimes they don't want to tell you, and you circumvent all of that with this methodology.
Sometimes people aren't able to tell you their real reaction, sometimes they don't want to tell you, and you circumvent all of that with this methodology.
Our clients have been very enthusiastically receptive to the neuroscience results. And we've also found great receptivity among our partner ad agencies who don't always love testing creative. Nielsen helps us grow our business by ensuring that our creative is the best that it can be.
Nielsen is doing for the ad council is fairly creepy. And the fact that they're choosing to use this now is a little bit creepy as well. But if you go to Nielsen.com and you look at this entire corporation's ideology, it will not disappoint you. The website is interesting in every way. I'll put all the links in the description. I highly recommend you go here and look at their philosophy and what they've done. It's crazy.
For nearly a century, when marketers wanted to know what consumers were thinking, they asked them. But consumers don't always do what they say they will do. Recent advances in neuroscience have confirmed why. It's because non-conscious emotions and responses also drive decisions, and consumers don't even realize that those factors are affecting what they do.
The brunt of marketing analysis is based on the articulated response. And it's quite simple. When you do that, you're missing probably at least 50% of what's actually going on.
So how do you understand what's really going on? With Nielsen Consumer Neuroscience, you can unlock the truth about how consumers' emotions and responses drive their purchase decisions and create products, ads, and programs that meet their needs.
The industry has believed for years that buying is a purely rational and conscious process. We now know that this model is out of date and that non-conscious emotions is the foundation for guiding purchase decisions.
With the industry's most complete suite of integrated consumer neuroscience tools, we can measure consumers' responses to your ads, packaging, in-store experiences, and media consumption at a very granular level, taking out the guesswork by pinpointing exactly what is and isn't working, giving you actionable insights you can rely on, and helping you turn good communication into really great communication.
While no single technology has a monopoly on the truth, we select from all these methodologies as appropriate for your business questions because we know they have a proven track record for success.
One of the great strengths of Nielsen's approach is that we have grounded it very, very strongly in science.
Science is at the core of who we are. Our research team is led by on-staff neuroscientists with more than 500 peer-reviewed articles. We have the industry's largest portfolio of patents, and we're supported by a science advisory board comprising members from the world's leading academic institutions. We lead the industry by using cutting-edge technology to continuously improve upon the best-in-class and most validated integrated solutions.
As more and more clients are signing up to use consumer neuroscience, to use these tools, and to do it at global scale, we're going to see a shift in the market as people understand that emotion matters and using consumer neuroscience to measure it is really the key to success.
Nielsen Consumer Neuroscience transforms non-conscious emotions and responses into real ROI for your business.
So once again, we have a multifaceted assault on our psyche. It seems to be coming in the name of public relations again, and it seems like this comes up over and over again, even just as far back as Hill and Knowlton, who we went over earlier in my videos, put up the fake girl Naira to tell the fake story that got us into the Gulf War I, the babies and incubators thing. And ever since Hill and Knowlton's involvement in that, everywhere that I look, whenever I see these events, I see that there's more than one component to them, and a component that I've been overlooking a lot is the propaganda component, the marketing component. And whenever I get into that, I always end up finding the same things at the end of the whole. Neurosciences, and then a bunch of people on television who I consider spooks, like Trevor Noah he's part of the circus, guys. So whenever one of them gets involved and they're hashtagging and they're drawing attention to this ad, and this ad is in bed with these neuroscience companies, and just so we're clear, what that doctor did back in 2010, he pioneered the way to get all this data from us, and he did all the measurements. He put all the people in the EEGs and measured their brain waves whenever they were looking at the television. And now, many years later, what his company is doing is pioneering the artificial intelligence needed to data mine that information. And his positioning is that he has the information in that data that can completely change the ball game in advertising. And it would seem to fall in line with what the ad council said themselves, that they need to use this service because they're often pushing ideas or things that people don't want to listen to or like, that they would use this for the first time in a situation like this, that it would get, the rubber stamp, yeah, let's do it because we really need it right now. And of course, ever since the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act that got passed a few years back, it would be completely legal. What they're doing is completely legal. I don't know. Over on Ad Age, we find that Viacom is promoting social distancing using this public service announcement. The Jersey Shore's star Pauly D, The Daily Show host Trevor Noah, and RuPaul will feature the hashtag #AloneTogether campaign on their social platforms.
Trevor Noah here. So I just wanted to let you know that we at The Daily Show have decided, don't touch your face. We at The Daily Show have decided that we're not going to be having shows next week. I've been reading up a lot on this. I know it's confusing. There's a difference between social distancing and quarantine, and social distancing means you try and keep yourself away from people as much as possible. I know some people have to eat, and when you're going to eat, you're going to eat, but let's try, because the longer we stay out there, the longer coronavirus remains a threat, and the longer the medical system really struggles or will struggle with the indecision, I guess, we have burdened with it. So
that's what you find if you go to hashtag #AloneTogether with Trevor Noah. The media company is developing a toolkit of assets that can be used by other broadcast, cable, digital, social, and audio companies. This is part of a larger partnership between the Ad Council, White House, and top media and digital companies regarding getting out key messaging surrounding the coronavirus. Yeah, and here, the Ad Council got together with all the top media companies and the White House to partner for the coronavirus public service announcements. So you have Nielsen buying out that neuroscience firm that was doing neuro research on people's reactions to ads. He the head scientist and the owner of the company is claiming that he could mine the subconscious mind. And that company is bought out by Nielsen, which uses that information to do what it does for the Ad Council. Then this weird ad hits the books, and I find out that the Ad Council is partnered with these strange neuroscience firms. So, I don't know. Could be something, might not. Either way, I wouldn't be listening to those commercials anymore. I'd mute it. So, once again, we have a multifaceted assault on our psyche, and it seems to be coming in the name of public relations again, and it seems like this comes up over and over again, even just as far back as Hill and Knowlton, who we went over earlier in my videos, put up the fake girl Naira to tell the fake story that got us into the Gulf War I, the babies and incubators thing. And ever since Hill and Knowlton's involvement in that, everywhere that I look, whenever I see these events, I always end up finding the same things at the end of the whole. Neurosciences, and then a bunch of people on television who I consider spooks. Trevor Noah he's part of the circus, guys. So whenever one of them gets involved and they're hashtagging and they're drawing attention to this ad, and this ad is in bed with these neuroscience companies, and just so we're clear, what that doctor did back in 2010, he pioneered the way to get all this data from us, and he did all the measurements. He put all the people in the EEGs and measured their brain waves whenever they were looking at the television. And now, many years later, what his company's doing is pioneering the artificial intelligence needed to data mine that information. And his positioning is that he has the information in that data that can completely change the ballgame in advertising. And it would seem to fall in line with what the ad council said themselves, that they need to use this service because they're often pushing ideas or things that people don't want to listen to or like, that they would use this for the first time in a situation like this, that it would get, the rubber stamp, yeah, let's do it because we really need it right now. And of course, ever since the Smith Modernization Act that got passed a few years back, it would be completely legal. What they're doing is completely legal. I don't know. Regarding all the information around COVID-19 and the stuff that's been going on and the concern with people's individual privacy, all these privacy advocates have written a letter to the Vice President Mike Pence. I'll leave this in the description so you guys can read it yourself. But they're drawing attention to basically the same things I have been. The health tracking and restriction apps, the turning over of people who test positive's whereabouts information from companies like Google to the police without a warrant, contact tracing teams that will be going randomly to people's houses, and the ad campaign. There are no protections for us in this realm because broadcasting has moved past it. But this open letter to Mike Pence is too little too late, because I believe that this isn't the only ad that's using this information, but there's other ads that are using it as well. And when they're accessing, like our consciousness is, say, 90% of our brain activity, like it said in the article, when they have access to that without our permission, then the law needs to be updated so that we can or cannot give permission, I guess, is the simplest way for me to say it. And so there's an open letter, sure, but if you hear the tone and tenor of the people who are the controllers right now, they are on a war footing. And so authorizing something like this would be nothing to me. So there are people out there who want to advocate for privacy, but as it is usually with technology, it's far too little too late. It seems like the legislation runs about 40 or 50 years behind the technology. So there you have it, guys. That's my dig on the commercial to annoy all commercials. And it looks like it's got a little something. Maybe there's a little bit of there. I don't know. But either way, let me know what you guys think. Comment, like, share, subscribe. YouTube is already pulled 2 of my videos, and I've uploaded them to my BitChute, but I have less than 350 followers, and YouTube is removing my videos. So their algorithms are obviously working very well, because that's crazy. You would think they would have more to do with the larger channels, but it has happened. And whenever I share one of my videos on YouTube, YouTube's created an in-between now where you have to actually go to the app to see the link, because Facebook blocks you from watching it on their internet browser on their mobile devices. It's pretty jacked up. So I'm getting censored pretty bad. And I was listening to SGT report the other day saying that the kind of format where people just read articles and then provide commentary, they're not going to be considered channels that can be monetized in the future. And so that's pretty scary, because they've demonetized a format that is meant to provide an alternate perspective to the mainstream news. And by demonetizing that specific format, that's a real heavy hit for the information warfare for our side. But I'm just saying that so that you guys are aware of that, so that that's what's happening. But anyways, I'll get another video in the next couple of days. Like, share, sub. I'll talk to you guys later.